Hey, how's it going, everybody? JT here on behalf of the eFinance Daily General Discussion on our Ethereum, back again for another Doots podcast. Thanks again to the EV Mavericks for hosting this episode 112. I can't believe 112 episodes. Today is May 23rd, 2025. I have a newfound friend, Madhavji from the Blockchain Founders Fund. We had met over an agency on Gmail and interacted a couple of times on Twitter. Ali, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
We're really excited to dig in. I had a couple of questions that came in off of Reddit, but I think the easiest way to get to know you a little bit, so you can get to know us a little bit, is just tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from originally? What was your education like, and when did you get into crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm born and raised in Vancouver, Canada. My parents were actually refugees from East Africa, so Kenya and Uganda, 1972. Some of you might be aware.
Wow.
Idi Amin, military dictator, came to power, kicked out people that were a different color, and so my parents ended up in Vancouver, and then I was born in Canada, and so did a number of small businesses as a kid, all sorts of things, everything from paper routes to then, getting into the whole world of, downloading and Pirate Bay and LimeWire and Napster, and then burning, and sort of created small businesses off of that. And I'm sure some of the viewers remember the good old days, right?
Yeah, it would take, you'd fire up the 56K modem and just sit there for 30 minutes waiting for one thing to come through. Yeah. Definitely.
Oh my God, I had a good system. I definitely had a good system. But yeah, so did that. Did a lot of different, because I know some of the viewers are probably interested in the background, right? So did all sorts of small businesses. Did a lot of computer networking. Solved a lot of different computer problems and things for people. Just a way to make money, right? Obviously, came from a low income family, given the parents were refugees, and that went well. And then did my undergrad at the University of Toronto. And while I was there, was fortunate enough to serve on the board of directors of the institution as well. So $2.5 billion institution.
Wow.
Got a lot of really great exposure there. And then went to PwC. So built a very strong foundation on the business and accounting side. That was a phenomenal sort of training ground. And simultaneously, that wrote my first book, which was called Your Guide to Succeed in University, which ended up becoming the #1 college book in America, won an international book award, became the #1 college book as well on Amazon. And then from there, ended up going down the rabbit hole. Well, I ended up working between Toronto, New York, and Brazil, and then moved into consulting, doing corporate turnarounds, helping companies that are about to go bankrupt return to profitability, focus on core growth, which is a very important skill, especially in the venture world and startup land. And then ended up going down the rabbit hole on Bitcoin. Ended up more from an ideological perspective, investing in Bitcoin, and then did an MBA at INSEAD. While I was at INSEAD, ended up going full-time into crypto. I thought I was late in 2016 to go full-time. Went full-time.
Best time to plant a tree was now, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So went full-time, started a crypto exchange at the time. We ended up raising 3 rounds of capital, grew our team to 40 people. Ended up selling that at the end of my stake in that at the end of 2017, and then we started Blockchain Founders Fund. And so, fast forward, we now have 200 companies that we've backed over close to a decade.
Oh, well, fantastic. I just want to rewind one more time back to your parents. What did they end up doing once they moved to Canada? Because I feel like there must have been some really formative values your parents instilled to you to get this work ethic. So what did they do to get started after they moved there, and then where did they end up, in their careers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely challenging, right? As a refugee, like, my dad came with literally the clothes on his back, right?
Yeah.
Like not like zero possessions, right? And that's tough. And so, I mean, they just worked all sorts of small jobs. My dad started doing mechanic work at an auto body shop, to try to just make ends meet and make money, and then started selling insurance and actually became really, really good at that. And became one of the top salespeople in the country
Yeah.
around that. And my mom, had to work different odd jobs, but worked at an airline, worked at a number of other companies, and just try to you just got to try to make it work, right? When you come from that background, and just life comes at you, you gotta figure out how to make lemonade, and I think they did a great job of that.
Yeah, I think also a key value of people that are coming from just a stricken poverty situation is you learn how to do more with nothing, or you take the tools that you have and do great things without feeling the urge to spend a lot of money to get there. It's like, how do you create value into the world that other people that you can enterprise from? So, okay, that's
For
a
sure.
fantastic
I mean,
backstory. Yeah.
as a kid, right? Like, we didn't have a lot, so it was, want to go get Slurpees or want to go get like bubble gum or whatever. You just had to make your own money. It was like, okay, go figure it out yourself. Like, and so you start doing things. So I started off with a paper route, right? And made a little bit, and I was like, this is horrible. You don't even make $2 an hour. What else can I do? And so then that's where I started off, building businesses at a pretty young age, around TV and music, right? So TV shows, music and movies, where people wanted to get them for their Walkmans or wanted to get movies and TV shows, and I'd be able to get them the latest things and burn them. And
Yeah.
I was running 4 burners simultaneously, 24 hours a
Yeah.
day, basically,
Yeah.
just to make things work, right? So
That's really cool. Yeah, and you kind of bankroll. You learn how to like bankroll the money into the next thing, into the next, and just sip the dividends barely as you go. As a foundational leader, that's pretty inspirational. What was the galvanizing moment? What was the linchpin in the crypto industry that just put your feet to the fire and said, this was what I was meant to do for now?
yeah, it maybe wasn't as quick as that, right? But I think for me there was a very big ideological aspect. I mean, there still is, and coming from the background that I came with, and my parents came from, one of the things that you realize is the world isn't fair. It's not easy. People aren't going to give you handouts. And one of the things that I saw early on was higher education in particular was one of those things where you could jump social economic classes. So, early on in my career, ended up spending a lot of time in the higher ed side, right? So wrote my first book, which was called Your Guide to Succeed in University, which was sort of directed at that as well. And, when I came across Bitcoin, the thing that was really interesting to me was this was also ideological as a way to, one, potentially jump economic classes, but that wasn't necessarily as clear yet. But I think two, it was something that was, given I had a lot of and have a lot of disappointment in the system, I don't believe in, how governments are run oftentimes. I think that they need to be a lot more efficient. They need to be there for the people, but they're oftentimes not. And, they spend a lot of money on things that you may not even agree with, right? Like whether
Yeah.
it's stuff completely abroad, whether it's wars and, going
Mm.
after children and women and all that. Like, it's just crazy, right? And so you're like, how do I get out of this system and help build a better world? And so from an ideological perspective, Bitcoin had that potential. And I think even more so now. I don't know if any of us saw it to get to the point it's at now as quickly as it has. But it's incredible where it's at. And if we continue to go in this direction and it becomes the reserve currency or becomes, the de facto currency for trade, it becomes more and more interesting because it's not a currency that can be manipulated by, human printing, right? And using for the wrong causes and cases.
Yeah, that was
So you're fully on the train of we need to separate capital from state.
I definitely, and I think when you look at what's happening in some of these countries, I mean, the amount of inflation, the amount of leakage, I mean, human interests just tend to, mess a lot of these up. And, maybe you get 20 years that are good or 50 years that are good or 100 years that are good. But I mean, most of, the world's most impressive, civilizations have all fallen because you end up with the wrong people that control these things, right? And so if you can split that up, I think you can create then civilizations that can go a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
one thing you do just to lower the downside effect of that is just lowering the friction of, going from one currency to the next. So it's one thing to say, okay, the dollar is mismanaged, now this other thing's rising, fine. But crypto opens the ability, if you want to own pounds, great. You want to own euros, great. You want to own, dollars, great. You want to own Bitcoin, great. It takes away the sort of implied force by taking away all the friction from moving from one asset to the next, which is a real liberating thing. Basically, the ability to opt out of the impact of corruption on you is something that forces less corruption in the system, right? It's like if I can withdraw from a bank onto the crypto rails, then they can't implement capital controls effectively. So it just stops as many capital controls from happening.
Yes and no. I think like what we've seen, and I agree with you when you look at it with the current baseline, but I don't know if I fully agree, because the challenge is when things actually get bad, you just don't let people transfer, right? Like look at what happened with Greece not long ago when and I was literally in Greece at the time when they basically shut off the entire banking system, and there was literally riots in the streets. And like part of these groups literally took over parliament, right? Like the SWAT teams, military on the ground, like against civilians, right? Like this is exactly the playbook when things go wrong. When things are good, yeah, you can change. When things are not good, the rules change, right?
Well, yeah,
And
which is why you want to have people holding most of their money outside of censorable systems, right?
exactly,
Which is what crypto enables. And I say crypto enables, it's not just that crypto enables you to hold whatever asset you want. It allows you to move between those assets with very little friction compared to any other previous financial system in the world, right? So
I agree. I do have, I'll tell you one concern. This is going to go a little bit maybe into a rabbit hole, and right. But one concern I think on the crypto or Bitcoin side right now is if you look at how much Bitcoin is held in major institutions, right? Because of how much is getting acquired, getting put into institutions. I mean, if you wanted to ban Bitcoin the same way you ban gold, like you can take it overnight for the vast majority of people, right? Because it's just in institutions.
yes.
And this is a huge problem, I think, right now that no one is talking about. And
That's
I
fair.
think is creating, and maybe I'm paranoid, but I think we're susceptible to a massive external shock from this.
Well, you're saying that the government would seize it from Coinbase institutional custody and then sell it for dollars?
And, well, I mean, if they wanted to just do what they did with gold, right? And you ban the public from holding it, and maybe you ban institutions, and the government can seize it, right? And maybe they even pay you more than it. Maybe they pay you $250,000 Bitcoin, right? But
I think if they banned you from
it's
holding it, they wouldn't even need to seize it. I think so many of the institutional players would just gladly offload it in haste, right? We'd have a very disorderly
or if the
market for a
government
couple
just
days.
wanted it. So if the government just wanted it, like in the same way that they did it with gold, right?
Yeah, but the ability to seize gold from under someone's mattress is much harder, right? Than okay,
That's
they can
even
go and seize it from the big vaults, right?
and they could do it with gold, so it's even worse on Bitcoin, I think,
Yeah, I
right?
think
Because
it's
like
worse on Bitcoin.
most public Bitcoin is going to be held in the institutions. Because think about ETFs and all of these things, right? So.
Yeah, that's a good point. By the way, Ali, this is our technical interviewer, Logri the Bard. He runs tokenomicsexplained.com. Would like to welcome everybody in the audience. We are talking to Ali from a Blockchain Founders Fund. We became friends a little bit on Twitter and over Gmail, and decided to get him on the show. We are airing right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, and 2 channels on X. So if you see that, hit a like, maybe give us a comment and a share. Appreciate that. So Ali, let's go to Blockchain Founders Fund. What is this entity, and what is it that you've done in the past, and where are you going in the future?
Absolutely. So we are a venture capital firm. We've now invested in about 200 companies over close to a decade. And we tend to be very early investors. So we like to invest, pre-seed, seed, typically on entry. And then we do follow on into Series A.
Is your first check service?
Yeah, so we will write first checks. Sometimes it'll be angels first, sometimes it'll be us first. But we kind of do our own thing. A lot of people in the crypto space, are oftentimes looking at, you know, crazy sort of token deals. We're like, oftentimes we're just backing incredible founders early, and they may launch a token, right? But it's oftentimes so early that the token's not even planned yet, right? And so you'll see Futureverse there. Many of you might know Futureverse. It was one of the first companies at the intersection of AI, blockchain, and gaming. They got acquired. Altered State Machine got acquired by Futureverse, which we were the first investor in, and they got acquired for a pretty sizable 9-figure valuation. And then many others you'll recognize, like Bioeconomy, and ARF just got acquired by Kuma. So you'll recognize many of the companies there as well. So ZK Pass is one of the top ZK privacy plays right now as well. So a lot of great companies that we've been fortunate enough to be part of the journey on.
How do you view the current regulatory environment, at least in the from a U.S.-centric perspective, but even like a worldwide perspective? Do you feel like crypto is reigniting another run here with all the different developers, software, and coders? Where's retail at? Where do you think we're headed now that we got, at least in the U.S., we got a different regime in power for 2 or 3 more years?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there, right? I tend to not be super political from the standpoint that I typically don't like any politicians,
Sure.
And I think most of them generally don't do well. But I think here what's been particularly interesting, obviously, is you had 2 major candidates, basically adopt major crypto policies, right? So in Trump and RFK, and I think that's been huge for the industry, right? Because prior to this, if you go back 6 months ago, right, we had probably UAE and Singapore leading the way in terms of regulation, in terms of where entrepreneurs want to go, in terms of where they wanted to set up, because a lot of American entrepreneurs were basically even looking at how to go abroad, and anyone that was abroad was definitely not looking at the US.
Can you highlight what Singapore was doing in terms of that?
I think both Singapore and the UAE, what they're really good at is having like a clarity on regulation and clarity on direction, and then very inviting to sort of like great companies, right? And so it is a great spot for talent. It's a great spot for clarity on regulation and get licenses and all of those types of things, which in the US has just been a mess, right? It's like you literally have Coinbase getting in trouble for things that they put into their S1, right? Like this should never happen because it's literally reviewed by the regulators. So how can you get in trouble by it later, right?
Oh, wow.
So the US, I think, has had a very problematic crypto landscape, and there's been other countries that also haven't been great, I think, from a regulatory standpoint. But what's been very impressive, I would say, in a 6-month period is I think everything's changed, right? The US has sort of become at least from a sentiment standpoint for entrepreneurs, the US is like the center of the world again, right? And everyone wants to be in the US. Everyone's expecting regulation to get better. You obviously have an administration that's very crypto friendly. So that is really good. Having said that, keep in mind that regulation has not caught up, right? So it's the sentiment of regulation is very positive in the US, but it does take time to actually pass bills, and you need to do it both on the state and federal levels. And you're starting to see that move, right? But it probably needs to catch up to where sentiment is at right now. So you would have seen 3 days ago, there was a major announcement from the New York mayor, right, about a major state announcement in the US. And so in New York. And so I think you're going to start seeing more and more of this state by state. You're seeing Texas do a few different things right now, et cetera. So I think you're going to see that take off and states pick up a lot of that slack and sort of get bills passed and sort of become more friendly. And then obviously on the federal level, you're seeing already them publicly being quite friendly, but I think there's still some things that need to be passed on that front as well, right? So I think that's good. In general, I think that retail is not fully back in crypto yet. It's not the same as before. I think there's a couple of reasons. I think one, it's difficult from an attention focus now. We have more tokens than ever launching, right? If you go back to 2017, I mean, we probably have a quantum of like 1,000 times more tokens launching, right? So that's a problem from a focus perspective. I don't think,
I was going to say the current environment of meme coins is like, it makes 2017 look like a little bitch. You know, it's like it's thousands of them every single day, and it's just like permanent grifting. And I think it's so chaotic.
It's done a lot to damage the reputation.
I agree.
Even people terrible. I know that are, you know, like career, even like KOL style people that are relatively well known in crypto. When they talk to people that are outside of crypto, they don't make it apparent that they are in crypto. They don't even want that, or the association of crypto with them face to face with someone on the train or something, right? It's kind of like it's not exactly embarrassment, but just it's not worth the conversation, right? That they're going to get trying to dispel all the misconceptions that label brings to them with every interaction.
Nobody talks about it like CrossFit anymore.
Exactly. It's one of those things, like we need the advocacy. We need the champions of this to change public sentiment. We need really informed people that deeply believe in this technology to get into the public sphere, you know, in order to change that mindset. But otherwise, the prevailing wind is 1,000 grifts a day, and it makes it really hard to turn that conception or that bias about crypto around.
For sure, right? So, I mean, it's and then I mean, you go back to the last cycle, and I feel like we were further ahead in some ways on like public opinion, like, and I get that Bitcoin's doing really well right now, and I think this will help, but. You know, the last cycle, I mean, I'd be in New York on the street, and then I'd jump in a cab, and the cab driver would be checking their crypto.com wallet, right? Or be talking about FTX or any of these things. And, you know, having so many people come so quickly into the space and then all get screwed from like everything from FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, many others, like, it created a huge issue. And then all those people went home for Thanksgiving and Christmas and told their families, it's the worst sector. I lost all my money. It all got locked. And I think we're still coming back from that. So I think now we also have right. And so I think retail really got hurt from that last cycle. And rightfully so. There's a lack of controls like in the space. Right. And you know,
it's hard to have controls in the way that you mean when we have such an international space. Like when we now have a finance system without borders, what do you expect the SEC to do to regulate FTX when it's not a U.S. entity?
So right? I'm not a big fan. I mean, well, I think the SEC screwed up on some stuff around that, but I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of necessarily like regulation from regulators. I'm generally not the biggest fan of that because I think, I mean, you still ended up with FTX, right? And that was basically regulated.
I think that the harder that you make the regulation in the U.S., the more it pushes people overseas to access the investments they want, right? So, and there's just jurisdictional limits on what the U.S. can do, and that is something that's pretty unique to blockchain technology.
I mean, I'm more in the camp of like, so if you go to the regulatory path, I think it can be good. Like, obviously, I think like, you know, you take Circle, you take Coinbase, like I think they're almost like gold standards for what you want to see from a reporting standpoint. But
they
like,
try real hard, yeah.
And that's great. And we need to get more to a point of how do we self-regulate, but get that level of like transparency and community. And you see like great community projects in crypto, they communicate with their communities like every day, right? They've got town halls every week or AMAs all the time. Like these types of things are great from a transparency perspective. If you can then, you know, see their wallets, see what's going on chain, like what their balances are. Ideally, we get to a future where you can like redeem against treasury if you don't buy into that token, and you can redeem against the treasury, or like things like this would be great, and sort of move the needle forward.
I've heard those called rage quit functions before.
Right, maybe, right, but I think we need to move more towards that. And I'm very much a believer in that. We're going to have two very distinct sectors in this space, right? We're going to end up with this regulated sector that, you know, is probably more of what we're talking about a lot these days, but then you're going to have a very strong non-regulated sector, right? Because
kind of the opposite of what's happening in China, right? So with the internet in China, you have Web 2 in China, which is just isolated to China. And then you have like an open and free internet for the rest of the world. And basically with your regulated boundary, you're saying there's going to be the Web 3 in the US is highly regulated thing. And then there's going to be the open and free finance system for the rest of the world.
yeah, I mean, like, I think it's like a necessity though, right? I think because like one, like even if you think about our current system, right? Like the way the world currently is regulated and operates. We have 1 billion people that don't have access to banking and don't have identities. And like this is a huge problem. Like for us to be like, yeah, this system works great in the current form when we've got 1 billion people cut out because, you know, US banks and international banks don't want to work with banks in emerging markets because of the way that like AML laws work.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically, it's called de-risking, but they basically like debank other banks in emerging markets. So those banks can't access the global systems, which then their people can't access those banks because they don't like they wouldn't use them or don't have access.
But
right?
I'm
So,
not defending the existing TradFi system there. In fact, I'd say like we need people to more clearly elucidate what the benefits of blockchain technology are, and you know, pioneer and evangelize that in more places. As just like you're doing, we just need a lot more of people like you and me. You know, we have Etherealize as of like start of this year for Ethereum. We have Solana Foundation pushing, kind of taking that role in the Solana ecosystem. But I think we're off by a factor of about 100x. We need like 100x more people like you and me that are talking about like credible neutrality. They're talking about things like, you know, instant finality. They're talking about atomic transactions. They're talking about the real core benefits of this technology in a way that doesn't just sound like we're trying to push our bags, right?
exactly. And I think this has also been a big problem in the space, right? Like oftentimes everyone's just been trying to push their bags and look at short-term exits, and it's created a huge sort of, you know,
cycle
problem in the industry.
Yeah, just like a feedback loop of it.
The core cypherpunk movement was very cynical to start with, right? Kind of like anti-government trust, etc. But now we've turned that distrust internally, right? To like, don't trust any KOL, any message, anything on social media. You are exit liquidity. They're all out to fuck you over. Like it really makes it hard to attract a new entrant to the space. If you go to crypto Twitter today, you're like, how do I get into Ethereum? Like, how do you think that experience is going to go? You're going to lose your money in a week, right?
And I mean, even I mean, there's a lot of like anti-VC sentiment, right? And to be honest, I think like rightfully so, right? Like there's just a lot of people that have been so short term on this space, and like even when we look at companies, we're very much looking for how do we actually create win-win-wins, right? Like I actually think this is an industry where you can build incredible transformational technology that means like everyone can win, right? Like consumers can win, investors can win, team can win.
Yeah.
But oftentimes in this space, teams are coming in and they're saying, how do we win? But like other people don't win, right? So consumers don't win, investors don't win. Then investors are coming in and being like, how do I make a quick buck on this before the team makes money or any of the consumers make money? And so then like the investors are trying to think of like win, lose, lose. And then like consumers are just always just in that like negative category, which is a huge problem.
Yeah, it's a 3-card money game on the street, you know. We interviewed Kate.
There was this like 2-2 meme, you know, do you remember this? So it had like the parenthesis around it. It was like, oh, and you know, this was around the Olympus DAO thing. Do you remember this?
I'm not sure if I saw this one.
Okay, so it came from this like grid of who wins and who loses in some game theoretic scenario, and then it was like if they both affect, it's like -1/-1. If one person you know defects, the other doesn't, it's like 1-1 or something. But if you both you know tell the police to go fuck themselves in your prisoner's dilemma scenario, then it's like 2-2. You both come out ahead, right?
Yeah, classic game theory. There you go.
And this became a meme for like packaging up win-win. It was tweeted a lot extensively back in the day when Olympus DAO and clones of that, those high inflationary tokens were very popular for a season. But you know, when you're like, okay, how do we package win-win-win? The meme for that used to be this 2-2 thing.
Fair. I mean, but of the day, there's only one way to package win-win-win, and it's go build incredible technology and products that are going to change the world,
Speak for
right?
themselves, yeah, and then get adoption, and then get the revenue and show the benefits. Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you.
And too many people like don't want to put in the work and the effort to go build incredible products, right? So
Everyone wants a quick buck.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We talked to Kate Lawrence from Blockcelerate. I don't know if you're familiar with Blockcelerate, but she echoed a lot of the same sentiments you have about the view of venture capitalists in the space and the impact over the years. Ali, I want to be respectful of your time. How much time do you have today?
I do got a hard stop in about 15 minutes.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about. Let me see. What about the impact of AI, and where do you think is AI going to be a play for Blockchain Founders Fund moving forward? It's kind of a hot topic, at least at a few of the conferences this year. Have you seen anything on the horizon with AI? How do we talk about AI with what you're doing?
Yeah, so I mean, we started investing at the intersection of AI and blockchain at the end of 2018. And so we were the first investors in a company called Altered State Machine, which I mentioned earlier, got acquired by Futureverse. And so AI, of course, is this transformational technology, I think similar in some ways to the potential of blockchain, right? So blockchain is going to be the transfer of value in sort of the future world. AI is going to basically help to power and sort of help build a lot of the businesses and a lot of the different factors around this, right? I think the problem with AI and Web3 right now is it's not like the innovations on the LLMs are typically going to come from here, or like the innovations on like the actual AI, right? So then it's then the application layer of AI that's sort of coming into Web3, right? Because the technical side is generally not coming from here in terms of like AI, like LLM development and stuff. So
yes and no, right? Like I agree with you, the LLMs aren't, but there aren't a whole lot of Web 2 companies that are trying to help you fine tune your own model, right? If you want to do that in a Web 2 sense, basically the answer is go hire a $5 million team of AI experts and then, rent a bunch of servers from AWS and go and make your model. And it's just the skill gap there is extraordinarily high compared to what you say the app layer is. I'd say we're trying to bridge that skill gap, right, in a way that makes AI more accessible to people that don't have a computer science degree.
For sure, but you're gonna take like something that's already developed, then you're gonna work on like training the model, building it out like for certain use cases.
Yeah, you're gonna start with the frontier model and then fine tune.
Yeah, which is what's gonna happen in like a lot of industries, right? Like you're going to go do the same thing for healthcare. You're going to go do the same thing for like supply chain. Like that's basically what's going to happen.
But you should do it through Web3, right? The point should be we can give you model ownership, right? We can help you automate skills, and we should build a skill automation pipeline, right? Because that's like a $3 trillion TAM. Like that is huge potential, and I don't see a lot of Web2 companies even targeting it.
No, for sure. And I think the big benefit here is it goes further by leveraging AI, because then you can start to automate everything from like the agreements to the transactions, like onwards, right? Like machine to machine, basically, like where people talk about like machine to machine transactions and stuff, like using blockchain makes a lot more sense, right? Like using blockchains for auditability of AI makes a lot of sense. Like I don't see how governments can effectively use AI without like they can't use it and just have a black box, and if something goes wrong, be like, we don't know what happened, right? So they need to have ways of basically auditing AI effectively, which is all going to basically be blockchains, right?
And as you said, agent to agent communication or agent to agent coordination. There's a lot of teams I know that are talking about agentic meshes. And how do they pay each other? Well, it's not as though your AI can have a bank account. And if you give it a bank account to act with, it's impersonating some person, right? It's not as though they went through KYC, AML as an AI, right? Maybe they did, but that'd be fraudulent. But my point is, if the AI is acting with your bank account credential, it's because it's impersonating a person and it's committing fraud. So with blockchain, that's literally not true. We can give it direct access to the money in a way that is at least not illegal.
Exactly. And so that's sort of what I was getting to. So like it becomes a lot more effective by using blockchain for various reasons, from the bank account and being able to like go steps further instead of getting stuck at the transaction spot. to actually continue through it, all the way to the auditability side when anything goes wrong, right? And so I think there's huge benefits. The problem that I'm seeing still in the Web3 space oftentimes is like, we see a lot, and it's not everyone, right? But we see a lot of founders that just have like no business building an AI company, right? And
Yeah, it's a hot topic.
And it definitely seems like, hey, I can go get a quick buck because I use the words AI. And like you saw that cycle even a number of months ago, like 6 months ago, right? Like you would have seen.
Oh, we saw the same thing with crypto once upon a time. Like we had some iced tea company added blockchain to their corporate name and got like a 50%
Trust
gain.
me, I remember. It's
just that with AI, whatever the hot topic is, right? We're going to figure out how to brand, how to package it. And I've seen at ETH Denver, for example, this happened again and again and again, right? Like Filecoin was talking about how you can use Filecoin to store AI models. Everyone would like distort their pitch to be like, and this is how we do AI, even though they have nothing at all to do with AI, right? It was just pervasive.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's starting to change now. I think like we're getting a lot of great entrepreneurs. We're seeing some pretty interesting things starting to happen now that we think can actually like stand the test of time, right? And that sort of first bit I think is hype, dies off. I think we're starting to see now like stuff that we think can stand the test of time and actually build incredible things. And so like, but it's huge. I mean, there, like, for example, like we're seeing use cases all across the board, but like we're seeing, for example, directly in our portfolio, we've got a company that's using like built basically a fully decentralized like chat, like it's almost like a decentralized social media, but for major media companies. So they partnered, for example, so Roundtable partnered with the Hockey News. All 32 NHL teams now actually are on there, so you can actually download it today on the App Store, and everything on there is pretty much on chain, right? All the chats, all the comments, all the likes, all of that's on chain. And then they're using real-time AI moderation. So one of the problems for major brands historically has been that, you know, you don't want to have these platforms where people can just comment and say stuff, because then like it can impact your brand if there's like they're swearing or it's not relevant or whatever they're doing. And like now you've got real-time AI moderation that allows you to actually now launch these things. And so now Miss World actually just launched with them as well. So the Miss World competition is launching soon. I didn't know, apparently 1 billion people follow Miss World every year. I didn't know that.
Jeez.
Hot girls. What else you need to know?
I guess
that's 1 out of every 8 people on the planet. It makes sense.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, but a lot of women actually follow this because they like aspire to be part of this group in each country, and so they run competitions in every world, and then they run like sort of the global one. And so they just signed up, and so all of their users now go through Roundtable, so they're all on chain, right? Like, but these are the types of like super apps that I think where you don't even know it's on chain, and you're building these incredible experiences that I think we've been talking about, and I think are finally happening. So I think that's pretty exciting. You know, we talked earlier about Altered State Machine, but the idea behind Altered State Machine was how do you build unique human-like DNA uniqueness into gaming, but like using AI, right? So how does that AI sort of evolve on its own, train on its own, and then like basically be its own characters, right? And like that was pretty interesting, and I think there's still huge potential around that topic.
I've seen some things with like D&D style games where, you know, you have a narrator, different NPCs that end up becoming their own models, and sort of have a dynamic world. I've also seen a lot of game studios use this just in tandem with people to generate like the background art assets and characters and whatnot. And you can get an artist 5 times more productive using these technologies.
Oh, 100%. So on the D&D one you mentioned, we've got a company called Evil Genius Games that also launched basically like the AI moderator side, and it's got incredible training, and they also have their own 5e engine, so you can like use sort of the D&D engine for other sort of IPs, even like Rambo or Pacific Rim and all sorts of cool stuff.
Ali, before we run out of time, let's talk a little bit about Crypto Nights. you've got a show. You're starring on a show on Amazon Prime. I actually sat down last night and watched 2 or 3. I'm in my 3rd episode right now. It feels very much like Shark Tank. You got 3 different hosts, and then you have Adrian is your main host. You got Brock Pierce, Kyle, and then you're down here in the crushed red suit. So the first question I have is, do you own that suit? And if you do, will you wear it to ETH Denver next year?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe I'll have to. We'll see.
I want to see what Patricio Warthalter look. When you guys pass each other in the hallway with red jackets on, that would be kind of fun to see. But tell us about the show. This is pretty fun. It's really high production value. Where are they filming it? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so great. So I got invited to be on the show by Riaz Mehta and team. I was actually one of Riaz's first backers. So Riaz is an Emmy-nominated director, and I invested in one of his earlier companies called All Rights, which is doing incredibly well. They actually provide movie and TV shows and movie content to streaming services. So all the biggest streaming services in the world basically buy content from them. So that's a great business. Incredible investors have now come in, but we were the first investor there. And then we supported them on RightStream, which was sort of this vision around how do we actually bring crowdfunding to the TV and film industry more effectively, and then fuel ideas around this. And so this was actually the first RightStream project, and they've got an Emmy-nominated producer as well involved. And then they got Adrian Grenier in, who's incredible, from Entourage and Devil Wears Prada. So he's got an incredible background. And the idea here is, how do we actually bring crypto mainstream, right? So it's not meant to be super advanced. Obviously, there's going to be some stuff that we explain in the show a little bit. But the idea is, the everyday person can watch this and learn and see different ideas of what's going on in crypto, and, how the technology can be used, how investors think about it. And we invest our own money, right? So it's all real money being invested on the show as well.
I think one of the best educational pieces I saw about this show that you don't... so let's back up. The crypto world is actually a pretty small bubble of people, right? But it's very difficult to understand for people that are not already plugged in for more than, let's say, a year or two. And even people that are plugged in for that minimal amount of time are still... I've been in it for a little bit longer than you have, and I still have tons of questions. But the smartest thing they did on this show was the boiler room, where you have the gentleman that's in the background that's kind of making commentary about the projects that are being pitched in front of the knights. And so he's able to talk into your ear about what's going on the stage for people that don't understand. So, for instance, one of the guys, it read my mind. When I was watching it, one of the guys had a product that was very similar to Friend.tech. And as he was pitching it, they went to the boiler room, they cut away to this host, and he's like, oh, that's like Friend.tech. And then one of the knights on stage was like, this is a lot like Friend.tech, and then it cuts back to the boiler room, and he's explaining to the young lady there what Friend.tech did, and this, that, or the other. So it was just, it's pretty well thought out in terms of trying to simultaneously show products on TV, give a little bit of a marketing chance for them. It shows kind of like maybe a little bit of inside baseball on how VC investing works. But more importantly, that educational piece is really, I was pretty impressed by it. I will say this, it wasn't like there was zero talk about what chain things were running on. Right? They abstracted all that stuff out, which is kind of what we want to see as blockchain running in the background and it was instead focusing on the product and how it benefits the people and the product. So it does a really good dance of explaining things while simultaneously showing the art of the deal, for lack of a better phrase. That was just
I
my
think it's a really
take
good
on it.
education vessel, right? If someone's crypto curious, this is at least going to focus more on, hey, here are a bunch of benefits that I hadn't thought about for applications that run on blockchain technologies, right? And as they go down, okay, where is that thing running and why, right? That's just the next, that's a natural progression of education and the process of the rabbit hole.
Absolutely. And like we need more of these things, right? So hopefully this becomes a catalyst and there's more and more of this education going out. And, people even going back to earlier, hopefully then people understand the difference between even some of these centralized tools like FTX BlockFi Celsius and decentralized tools when you talk about blockchain, right? Because that's even been misconceptions in the past.
Well, that's something you talk about in the show as well, right? What parts of this are centralized? What parts of this are under control?
Yeah, it's really cool. Is there, Ali, we're running short on your time. Is there anything else you want to, how can people find you? How many seasons are planned? How's the reception been on Prime TV? What else do you want to chat with before you head out?
Yeah, the reception's been incredible. Actually, I've got like random people even reaching out to me on socials and things like that right now about the show, which is really cool to see. So I think that's great. They are planning a second season. That's sort of all I know so far. But that I think will be pretty soon. So if there are companies or listeners that are running companies that are interested in it, definitely either reach out to them or to me, and I'm happy to connect you. And I'm not part of selecting them. Actually, I don't even know the company. We don't even actually know the companies even 60 seconds before they show up on into the crypt on there. So we actually are finding out in real time as a
few of them though you have met in the past, like in a very early round type of scenario. But to your point, it's not like they called you last Wednesday and they talked to the DP and got on the set, I mean,
exactly.
Time has passed. I've got a company I'll bring to you in a DM. I appreciate that. I'm glad anybody out there that's looking to possibly get into the selection pool, you heard it here first on the EV Mavericks Dudes podcast. So very cool. All right.
So happy to help with that. And then if you want to reach me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Ali Madhavji, or on Twitter or X, Ali_Madhavji. But feel free to reach out, or even on our website. If you're working on something, you can share it with us on the website as well. We actually look at every single thing that gets submitted on there as well. So happy to take a look.
Awesome. Ali Madhavji, all the way from the Blockchain Founders Fund, one of the starring members of Crypto Nights, now premiering on Amazon Prime TV. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate you carving out a generous amount of your time to talk with us on the Dudes podcast. And with that, we're ready to go on to the second part of the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. My pleasure.
Bye. Awesome. Very cool person. I'm glad that Ali was able to stop by and hang out with us for a few. And now we're going to run right over into our Doots of the week. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got a rundown on the rich list. It looks like we got JS here sitting at 111, Aiden Cairo at 118, Ethical Trade at 118, still a tie, Crypto Currency at 121, Henny Abu at 127, moving on up, Tricky Troll at 155, Benito 2030 at 172, Little Logri the Bard at 202, Harog at 211, and Super Fizz has actually returned to the chat. Continues to move up in that number one spot at 223. Our weekly roundups, we're sticking. Oh, I forgot to get I got to get our upcoming events. Looks like Healdsburg, California, May 24th through June 21st is the event is called Edge Esmeralda. We got stuff going on in Prague from May 27th to May 30th. Looks like 3 different events. Belgrade, Serbia, June 3rd through the 8th. And we got the NFT Non-Fungible Conference, NFC, in Portugal, June 4th through the 6th. Offscript, June 11th through the 15th in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. Berlin, Germany, June 12th through the 13th. Protocol Berg, 13th through the 15th. ETH Kiev. Book your plane tickets, go to Kiev and hang out. Let's see what happens. DAppCon, Berlin, Germany. That's a big one, right? June 16th through the 18th. All right. Now we're on to our morning roundup. Johnny Dappeth chimes in. Ethereum 10.9 gives us a price at 26.14, although that has been fluctuating so much over the last few hours. Frank the Tank.
It's been volatile.
It has been volatile. I don't even know where we're at now. It's probably gone up and down $100 just in the.
It's more tariff stuff. Just you know, playing with the whole market.
Yeah, buy the dump, right? Frank the Tank 235 on the ratio. Weekly haiku courtesy of JS Tears. Attacker observe while cryptography preserve ahead of the curve. How does he do it? JS Tears, another weekly haiku. Alexis Kef explains the new cow swap update. So we don't have a shit posted today. Since I am a very long time user of cow swap, I'm periodically sharing some of the upgrades and developments to their amazing product. Some hours ago, they announced on X that they are moving from a single batch auctions to a new core mechanism, the fair combinatorial auction. Wow. Okay, what is FCA? Quote, FCA is a more advanced auction format that allows solvers to submit multiple solutions, including individual order bids, bundled batch bids. This lets CowSwap protocol evaluate more paths to execution, not just one winner. Why, you might be wondering, the change already established single batch auction to something new? Well, under SBA, the following limits existed. Only one winner per auction equaled wasted potential. Extra value from batching often benefited a few trades. And EBBO checks were needed to enforce fairness. What is EBBO? Chat, let me know. FCA solves these issues. The actual users, traders, swappers, etc., get to enjoy the following. They get to enjoy better price fairness, more orders filled per auction, lower slippage, fewer discarded solutions, stronger throughput, and same uniform prices for same direction trades. There is also better MEV protection, such as FCA helps reduce subtle solver manipulation like self-trading to game batch rewards. By allowing multiple bids, smart solvers naturally compete across batch sizes, removing the incentive to stuff trades for appearance, unquote. All right. Finishing my comment, I would just like to add that since the first time I used CowSwap, I've used it for almost 99% of all the swapping I do. You know what? This is just me, JT, interjecting. CowSwap has been a great experience for me, too. I would endorse it if they actually paid me to. All right. User Haunted Jockstrap. Great. God, I freaking love it. By the way, Alexis Kef, I forgot to read out their Doots score is a Dooter number 66. Okay. Alexis Kef is a Dooter number 66. Yeah, I can make sure I got that right. Since Haunted Jockstrap brings up product market fit for NFTs, crypto in gaming, and user Nude Salad 3000. Noodle Salad 3000 explains how the state of the gaming industry and ownership is fundamentally broken. Haunted Jockstrap is a Dooter number 17 for this year, and Noodle Salad 3000 is a Dooter number 1. It's a first-time Dooter on the show. All right, Haunted Jockstrap writes, I felt a couple of years ago that NFTs would be much more widely adopted now than they became. Obviously, tokenization and DeFi are the big ticket items of the moment, but it's pretty crazy that crypto hasn't penetrated things like event ticketing and gaming like I thought. Gamers have largely rejected the idea of crypto integration. They see us, unfortunately, how the majority of society sees us, grifters. They didn't see crypto integration as a cool new feature, but instead as the next loot box mechanic, there to further financialize their hobby. It quickly became not financially possible for a studio to integrate crypto, even if they wanted to, as advertising your game contained NFTs or crypto integration was like a poison pill. Myself and other proponents would say that, of course, while crypto integration could, and in many cases probably would, be extractive to the consumer, there are really cool possibilities that such mechanics could be instead extremely consumer friendly. So, what do we think? Is there no PMF there? And I was totally wrong. Are we still early when it comes to NFT adoption? Do we need the DeFi tokenization thing to take off before NFTs take off? Question mark. Well, I'm just going to interject my own for a second just to say that another reason gamers hated crypto was we bought all the GPUs. You remember that? You couldn't get a stinking GPU. It was horrible. Sorry. Ethereum nerds unite. We kind of wrecked the market and some other tokens as well, but definitely Ethereum bought a lot of GPUs. And I think that was probably one of the biggest bitterness traps there. All right. And then user nude Salat 3000 responds, well, gamers would first of all jump at it if we would really own things. The same BS that Microsoft tried to pull off. You don't own Windows, just a license to use it, and hence you cannot resell it. Luckily, the European Union kicked their balls and mandated that if you own the license, you have the right to sell it at a price of your choice. Born was the secondary market of lower prices. We would need exactly the same for games, you know? But game shops like Valve, Steam, or others, and are now corrupt, tell you that you only own access to the library of the games. Hence, you cannot sell the license of the games. Interestingly, you would, however, be entitled to sell or inherit your game account with all licenses. But even that, they try to dismiss under their own logic. All right, the biggest scam level now is visible with the Nintendo Switch 2. You cannot modify it, or it gets hardware bricked because you only own the license to use it. Yahoo! Oh boy. We would need to break up the markets to make goods ownable. Then they are tradable. The market would be even bigger if we would really own the data we produce by the GPDR. Thousands of startups would be created if all vendors would need to provide API access to your own data. Only then you create the network effect and the network of platforms. But like now, you don't own anything. You don't have your data. You are locked in one ecosystem, and you can't leverage the utility by such connections and profit by such network money concepts as ETH. But I don't see any party competent enough to drive such regulatory liberal openings of technology. Microsoft was just attacked because agencies couldn't resell their own old license, which were so expensive. Great response. That's a first-time duder coming up with that response. Very nice. User VVPan shares a bullish snippet from the AMA with Tomas. Man, I hope I'm saying his name right. From the EF. Somebody help me. Is it Tomas? Okay. I'm going to say it is. All right. Let me also say user VVPan they got double duded one day last week. Duder number 26 for this round. An AMA with EF co-director Tomas Stansak. I feel bad. I don't know how to say it. It's happening on Farcaster in the AMA channel. Nothing too interesting, I would say, but to those in need of hopium, there's this exchange. The question was, EF gets a lot of heat on X and Twitter. What's the biggest misconception people have, and what do they get wrong? His answer, people are unaware of how overwhelming is the advantage of the Ethereum mainnet in the space of real-world assets, tokenization, DeFi liquidity, stablecoins issuance. www.rwa.xyz. He lists the website. Many people also do not realize how strong and healthy the relationship between Ethereum L1 and L2 is. Let's just open this bad boy up. Let's see what it is. RWA.XYZ. Every tokenized real-world asset in one place. If I click on View Analytics, wow, look at that. Global market revenue. Look at all this pretty. Nice. Nice. Excellent. All right. RWA.XYZ. You can bookmark that and check out those details. User Harog explains the current status of blobs and DA. Boy, oh boy, this is going to be a pretty big read here. What happened in the last few days and weeks is that Ethereum blobs overtook alternative DA providers like Celestia and actual data posted. The increased blob space increased the lead a bit more. This shows that there is not a huge demand for alternative DA at the moment. In the long run, I expect this to change again, but it is great to see that there is a clear demand for Ethereum native DA, and that Ethereum can provide enough for the roll-up space to grow. Currently, there are more blobs available than is demanded from the market. Not surprising, when availability just doubled less than 2 weeks ago. This means blob prices are at the bottom one way and essentially free. This is the same situation we had after the introduction of blobs with the Denkun upgrade. It took a bit more than 6 months to consistently fill the available blobs and a fee market to develop. At the moment, 3.5 to 4 blobs are filled out of the 6 available. I would expect it to also take a few months again for demand to match the available blobs and a fee market to develop. If you check Etherscan, you can see that blob carrying transactions still pay the normal gas fees through which cost them between 3 and 5 cents. Okay, depending on how much call data they use with the transaction. That's crazy. So there is still some fees paid back to Ethereum. In the long run, we will most probably see a higher income from selling blobs alone. The demand is here, which is a great indicator of things to come. There is also the discussion to include a fixed or dynamic minimum fee for blobs in the next upgrade, Fusaka, which would result in roll-ups having to pay a small amount, even when there are many more blobs available than is demanded from the market. This is especially important as Fusaka comes with a massive increase of blob space. At the moment, an increase by a factor of 8 is discussed, but it might be a bit smaller right after the upgrade and increase slowly afterwards. If you want to have sources, check out the Dune dashboards, which look at blobs. The Hill Dobby one is always a great start. You already used growthepie.xyz, which is generally very reliable. If you want to check the actual block carrying transactions and what they pay, go to Etherscan and click blockchain and then view blobs and check the gas fees paid for some of the transactions. Thank you, Harog. User Superfizz starts a discussion about everyone's staking journey. Superfizz, he says, tell me about your staking journey. Are you staking now? How's it going for you? How long have you been staking? Has it been a net positive or a net negative? Not just financially, but globally. What forms of staking have you gone with? What's your 10-year outlook on staking? He says, these are directionally leading questions. I'd much rather see your free-form answer than a direct answer to these specific questions. And there's the post there. You can also get there from dailydoots.com if you want a quick look-see. It looks like Alexis Kev says a mix of LSTs. I've been staking since the merge using all nodes rocket pool combo for 2 to 3 years, now just LSTs. I definitely keep around a quarter of my stack as LSTs forever. User Way Tarded says, I just want to give a shout out to the nerds that keep whatever magic it is that makes our ETH so awesome and working. Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Pooey Gusset says, I've been staking since mid-2021, running an Asus PN50 with 2 terabytes. I installed Dapnode to run it. It's been rock solid, maybe an hour maintenance every 2 to 3 months, and an annual complete wipe and resync of the Nethermind package to keep everything under 2 terabytes. I've been producing roughly the expected amount of blocks, mostly with around 0.05 to 0.5 ETH MEV, but I did recently win a lottery MEV block, which now I'm also staking. Damn. All right, yeah. Yeah, it's good. A lot of good answers in there. Good on you, Super Fizz. Thanks for being in the daily again. Benito 2030, OG, been around forever. Benito 2030 is a duder 172, asks a genuine question about how critical different EF-funded teams are, and user Harog, there he is again, digs deeper on the topic. All right. I've been thinking a bit about the Ethereum Foundation organizational chart. Let's open this up so we can see it. Josh Stark posted this out. It shows it's an overview organization chart. This was a pretty well-received tweet. A lot of people had not seen this hierarchy before, I believe, if I remember correctly. It's the Ethereum Foundation org chart. Now, I know this has been discussed a lot in the past couple of months, mostly with a negative connotation, but I still want to add some thoughts. As you can see, there's a lot of teams on the payroll. Some teams are, in my opinion, essential. For example, the Geth team, protocol support, etc. for Ethereum, especially when it comes to really implementing specs and basically running the protocol. Obviously, in the end, the validators run the protocol, but client teams are as close as it gets. The research-heavy teams have been questioned a lot, though, and I think it's fair to do that. It's not, air quote, our money. But still, the community and ecosystem should voice concerns if money is spent unwisely. Given that ETH had just a very few upgrades and a lot of the research done couldn't be implemented just because the scope of every fork needs to be limited, should these teams exist? We could argue that the impact of a lot of teams was close to zero. When I was a product manager years ago, I wouldn't design new features if the roadmap was full. Deep in my heart, I want things to be efficient, so why not cut the cost? With Ethereum pivoting and likely increasing the amount of forks per year, and hence the amount of features that make it into the protocol, the argument that all this research doesn't matter already weakens. At the same time, there's one thing that is even more important. One killer feature can change everything. If R&D is successful and one of these teams creates something that only Ethereum has or can do, then the impact of that is already so huge that all the money invested in R&D that doesn't hit the chain isn't really relevant anymore. I believe now is the time to invest in research, since we can expect the results of that process to be included in a fork soon. So we shouldn't spend money just to spend money and distribute ETH from the foundation to others. But since the foundation tries to align the implementation output with the research output and the bottleneck, the investments make more sense than ever. Let's hope we see some younger EIPs make it into the protocol rather sooner than later. I'm going to do a ninja edit here. Hani Abu chimed in. It was always wise to invest in R&D. Time to research ideas isn't when something is ready to be implemented. It's years prior. That research also informations us on the design path for what can be implemented. All right. And then finally, Harog responds. Well, I guess we are mostly speaking about the left side of the organizational chart. Again, I'll put this up. He's looking at this side, mostly the left side, which is very heavy. The top are the actual research teams, roughly 43 people, whereas the bottom part, roughly 66 people, is more the engineering part of the R&D. It's very difficult to say which parts are important and which are not as an outsider. But Nixo did a great post about a subset of these groups and what they've been up to. And then Nixo, who was our guest last week, shout out to Nixo on episode 111. It looks like she has a post on a mirror. Okay. Yeah, there it is. And you can get all this at dailydoots.com. I think many of us have been directly influenced by what the Applied Research Group and Consensus R&D does. Without Tony Warstadter's data-driven analysis, we would still be in the dark about how much we can scale the L1 and how healthy the chain is overall. The cryptography team has been essential in developing the stateless Ethereum roadmap as well as the PeerDAO's implementation research. Some things did not work out that well, like the hardware VDF implementation. But in the end, this is also showed that verifiable delayed functions, or VDFs, are not ready yet to be used. The Robust Incentives Group, RIG, is essential to analyze the censorship resistance and a possible mitigation with FOSSIL, which stands for Fork Choice Enforced Inclusion List. They are also rethinking issuance, which is a different beast to tackle. I do not know too much about the other research teams, but Nixo mentions what they do. On the more engineering side of things, I do not have to mention DAOPS, and Geth, as they are well known, and also the protocol support team, which coordinates core devs. The account abstraction team talks with wallet providers and dApp devs on how to coordinate account abstraction efforts. The portal network team is the one which makes it possible that we will have history expiry soon on mainnet, which saves validators a few hundred gigabytes of space in the first step. More to come. The stateless consensus team got a bit rug pulled by the cryptography team when the cryptography team found that newer cryptographic schemes can improve statelessness. A lot of stateless consensus teams' implementations of Merkle trees has most probably been for nothing. Nevertheless, statelessness is essential for the future scaling of Ethereum, which means their engineering effort is essential for Ethereum. The STEEL teams, STEEL teams, works on formalizing the execution specifications and write tests for them. This is something that needs to be done. Until recently, the execution layer was not really specified properly, and people just took Geth as the reference when writing their own client. Having properly specified and tested execution spec will ideally help in analyzing potential issues and future upgrades before they are found in the final implementation. Some other teams, like the Snake Charmers, that's Python, and JavaScript teams, have their own projects, but as far as I understand, are also as supporting other teams as if they need a specific implementation of something in their respective programming language. The Epsilon team do implementations and analysis of EIP, which concern the EVM. The only team I have never heard of is the P2P networking team. Apparently, they are the maintainers of the libp2p library for the Go programming language. Not sure I directly see this from what could be cut away. If I was to split something off, I personally think Geth does not have to be an integral part of the EF anymore, as there are now many flourishing client teams outside of the EF, which ensure that there's a lot of client diversity. But I'm also not sure how much the Geth team really costs the EF, as I would guess a large part of their salary is paid by the Protocol Guild, roughly $70,000 of the total salary. Maybe there is a way to split the Geth team and P2P networking team with it into its own separate entity. To do this properly will need a lot of work, as all the other client teams have several logs to stand on regarding income. Okay. Looks like Edmund Edgar jumps in, fellow moderator. Yeah, and it goes on from there with Hani Abu and Benito 2030. If you like digging into the weeds of the EF organizational chart, you can find that at dailydoots.com/weekly/roundups. User Here I Am Alive covers a breakthrough piece of research. User Here I Am Alive this week is a Duder number 33. There is a tweet here from Justin Drake. Let's open that up because that's what you do with Justin Drake tweets. You open them up and then you take them without reading them. Oh, I've already liked it. See, I've already done this. But I'm going to read it. Real-time proving is here. Sorry, let me start over. Mind-blowing GIF. Real-time proving is here. Mind-blown emoji. Mainnet EVM blocks proven in under 1 Ethereum slot. I did read this. In under 12 seconds. Goosebumps. Succinct proves every Ethereum L1 block. Okay, 94% of them in less than 12 seconds, 99% in less than 13 seconds, and going to be 99.9% in less than 12 seconds soon. Trademark. Yesterday, RISC0 unveiled a $120,000 home GPU cluster. Oh, I can go pick a couple of them up. Proofs expected in 9.25 seconds. Brevis, OpenVM, Snarkify, Zisk, and ZKM are weeks from joining the real-time club. Soon, TM, my validator will verify EVM blocks on a Raspberry Pi Pico, a $5 board that consumes less than 1 watt. I will ditch my EL client in favor of a ZK-EL. No 1 terabyte NVMe. Goodbye, Geth. Hello, ZK Reth. Stateless and RAMless verification in milliseconds on a single CPU core with real-time proving 1 gigagas per second, 10,000 transactions per second is within reach. I'm reading that right. Without compromising validator decentralization. Am I reading this right?
How dare you?
Oh my gosh. This is crazy. From now on, expect regular gas limit bumps. 10% of stake is already voting for 60 million limit. Your validators can too. Snarkifying mainnet turns Ethereum L1 into the first based and native rollup. Stage 2, bug-free. Decentralized sequencing, no security council, no governance. The L1 will lead by example.
This is Sparta!
This Friday we celebrate. Join us for ETH Proofs Call number 2 on May 23rd. That's today at 2 p.m. UTC. I don't know what time that is. Help me out, chat. 25 speakers, 2 hours of content. Calls are open. DM at Corcoran Will for a calendar invite. We are witnessing history. Believe in something real and believe in real-time proving.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Man, that's a deep cut. Earthquake Question. There's an old friend. Earthquake Question shows up in the daily. He's the Lambeau Vitalik artist, if you remember from way back on ETH Trader days. Duder number 5, probably one of the top. If you look up ETH Trader all-time posts, you're going to see a Lambeau Vitalik. I'm pretty sure that was Earthquake Question. I know he did it, but it's got to be one of the top posts of all time. Duder number 5. Duder number 5. Some of you live or die by the price action on any given day and need to relax. Real-time proving yesterday. Tomas is killing it on Twitter today with follow-ups on where things are and what hirings need to happen for different areas, where the Ethereum teams fall short, the Genius Act going through Congress. Oh my gosh. Look, I truly need ETH to do well this cycle because AI is likely to replace me at my job in the coming year. Oh shit, that sucks, man. I hate that for you, man. But on the flip side, as many have said a million times, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Things truly are shifting and looking great for Ethereum right now. I want to open up this in another tab. I want to see some of these other comments. Stoby responds, Duder number 15. I feel like 1 year will actually be more like greater than 10. The best models right now are still shit. Superhuman speed and breadth of knowledge, but still no understanding, leading to bizarre mistakes or terrible solutions. No agency. And as soon as you go to novel idea or large projects rather than basic things repeated on public GitHub 1,000 times, they fall apart. Gains from better data and hardware times time is diminishing now. They're already pretty extreme. Demand for dev is elastic. So I can see total people employed as devs decreasing, but not like half the devs losing their jobs. Could even be the case devs' productivity becomes so high that their value increases so much, total quantity increases. It's just working in a different way. Insurance guy question Duder number 1 also replies about AI replacing jobs. Okay, he says AI replacing people's jobs is so real. I have a few friends who have been laid off specifically because of this. Governments have to step up and provide support, or I wouldn't be surprised in the next few years we see riots for people who can't find a job. It's a scary situation to think about, really. And it goes on from there. And they're talking about working in IT. My wife and I works in almost all companies. Upper management is basically salivating at the cost savings AI will bring. Naturally, this will lead to record profits, which in turn means record bonuses. Your boss probably already had conversation with upper management about this, which is why he mentioned it. It goes on from there. Yeah, it's real. It's real. We were talking about that last week. Just you think that even in something like construction, using your hands, you should be safe. It's like, no, there's robots that can lay drywall up on, but it's all new construction, but it's still a thing. All right, Turkish 2026 is tracking the Genius stablecoin bill and explains what it mandates. Deuter number 2. I'm loving when people share the news. The U.S. Senate is poised to pass the Genius Act, which stands for Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins. The U.S. Senate is scheduled to vote on the Genius Act today. That's Monday. Yeah, they passed it, right? I'm expecting price volatility. Genius Act requires stablecoin issuers to back tokens 1-to-1 with assets like USD and treasuries, disclose reserves monthly, and comply with AML rules. It allows state oversight for issuers with less than $10 billion in issuance, unlike the Stables Acts restrict federal oversight. Genius permits broader reserve assets and studies algorithmic stablecoins, whilst the bill Stable bans them for 2 years. So the Genius Act is actually a lot more liberal. And there you have it. Turkish 2026. Say that again, Logri.
It's the one that just got through the House, too.
Okay, it did make it through the House. Okay. All right. Well, that wraps up this week. I'm so glad that Ali Madhavji was able to stop by from Blockchain Founders Fund. You can check out Crypto Nights on Amazon Prime TV. It's actually pretty interesting. I watched a couple episodes, and I think you should too. It stars quite a few people, including Brock Pierce, which is from EOS fame and a co-founder of Tether, I believe. So for what it's worth, it's a really interesting cast. Like I said, the big takeaway for me was the back room where the guy is kind of explaining a little bit about what the people are talking about on stage. So hopefully newcomers to crypto, they get a chance to watch Crypto Nights. When they listen to some of the madness going on in the sales pitch, they can kind of understand a little bit of the terminology. But it's not too blockchain heavy. They don't talk about what blockchains are being used. If you notice today, I didn't even ask one single question about what chain certain things are on or advocate for any one thing or another. Ali did really thank you for dropping by. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you know anybody who wants to get on this podcast, send them my way, all right? Well, that's it for today. Stick around after the live stream because we continue the party in the hotel lobby on Discord for a bonus hour of popcorn. It's a fun place to let loose when the parents aren't watching on YouTube. Hi, Mom. On behalf of the eFinance and EV Maverick Style, my name is JT. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City.